All right, Yash, this is Mark. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yep, we can hear you and see your screen.
Okay. And then are we ready to start, or are we giving people a few more minutes?
This session is kind of small, so I think you're good to go.
There's still a few people signing on. You might want to give it just another minute or two.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Or now it looks good, Mark.
Just as I stopped sharing to make sure I had my notes on the right screen. All right, thanks, Chris. Welcome everyone to Campus 101 for employees. My name is Mark Mellinger. I am a business systems analyst for CapTech, as we worked with Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry to create this campus system. And I'll be leading the training today. So just a quick course description. This course will help familiarize yourself with the core functionality of the new Work Comp campus. This includes filing injury reports, accessing and viewing claims and cases, and serving and receiving documents related to those claims and cases. This audience is, the audience for this class is injured workers, employees in the system. We expect this course to be 2.25 hours. It might fall a little under that, but we'll take our time. That leaves us a little extra time so we can answer any questions that come up. There are no prerequisites for this course. This was probably your first introduction to campus in general. As Yash mentioned before we got started here, I'm going to run through and try to keep it slow and to the point. And I also will pause for questions at certain places in the session today. But if something comes up, also please use the chat functionality in the meeting. And then when we pull up, we can stop and take a look at any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that comes up today. So with that, we'll take a look at the agenda. So we'll do a quick overview of campus and the benefits that you'll be receiving by using the campus system. Then we'll go into getting started with campus, which will be a lot of overview material and learning some terminology that you'll become familiar with in campus. Next, we'll move to claim access. This will be how you get in and are able to see the claims that you're involved in campus. Then we'll take a look at claim overview. So kind of looking more at the details of the claim and how you'll look at that as an employee. And then finally, we'll close it off with electronic service. So this will be serving documents that previously had to be served by mail. Campus allows you to do that electronically if you so choose. So those are the things that we'll cover today. All right, so welcome to the Minnesota Workers' Compensation Campus. If you're curious as to what campus stands for or why we chose that word, it's the Claim Access and Management Platform User System. And so this is your new hub for all workers' compensation claims and filings with the department. Campus allows easy access for all parties to workers' compensation claims. So quicker access to those claims online will ensure injuries are reported and compensated in a streamlined process. And so these are some screenshots from the system. We'll be showing more screenshots of the system as well as a couple demos today, just to show you it working in action. And this is just another slide kind of explaining those benefits of campus. So self-service online access to claims, related documents, events, and outcomes. So you have the ability to go in and see all of these things right away in real time as claims mature and change direction, or if new cases are created, you have the ability to go review that online. You can securely send e-documents to the parties on the claim. So this is really about being able to file all of the paperwork that used to be manual. You can do it through campus online. You can securely send and receive data between DLI, OAH, and WCCA. And so these other two systems, especially the C-TRAC system with OAH, is integrated with campus. All that really means is for any disputes that are related to your claim, campus offers seamless integration with those other offices. And then finally, and this is really a pretty big one, the electronic nature of campus is going to minimize claim errors. So if you're filing documents by paper, you might write something wrong, you might fudge a number, but with everything hooked up in campus, you will have to check that information before you file anything. And so it will make a more accurate claim information. Okay, so next we're going to look at some terminology that is pervasive through campus and some terms that you'll want to learn and become familiar with so that you know how to use the system. And this is really around entities versus transactions. It's really just the who and the what of campus. So entities are parties that exist in the system to which transactions can be associated. And so we have the employee here, but that's also the employer, the insurer, trading partners, rehab firms, law firms, state agencies. These are all the who on any claim that's filed in any case that is off of a claim. Whereas transactions are the things that will be worked on. It's the what. So the kind of top level transaction that we talk about a lot is the claim, the basis for all workers' compensation. But there are other cases that can come off of this. And so under a claim, there can be a dispute, there can be an event, all of these are the ones, any appeals, penalties, rehab cases. These are all transactions. And so when we use kind of the transaction term, it's an umbrella term to capture all of these things that are worked on in campus. One other piece to this and a distinction that I think is important but isn't on this slide is the user themselves too. And that would be you as we go into the system, and I'll show you how to log in and create a user profile. But it's important to understand that entities are the parties that exist to which transactions can be associated. But then there are also users that log into campus and create profiles that will be a part of these entities. And so you can think about the example of an employer. An employer is a company with several workers that could be acting on behalf of that employer on a claim. And so a user would work under that entity. For employees specifically in this audience, there is a distinction. There is an employee entity in campus that is tied to the transaction, but then you will also have the ability to make a user profile in campus, and you can then link to the entity, which will give you access to the claim. And I know this is all a lot of information right now, but I'll be sure to show you how this all works in the system. So the next term we want to review is details pages. So for every entity and transaction in campus, so everything on both of those lists on the last slide, they all have what's called a details page. And this allows you to view information on a claim or a case or an entity. It has all kind of relevant information that you would want to see depending on the type of details page that you're looking at. It's also the hub where you can file any paperwork to that transaction or to that entity. So if you're going to take action on a claim, if you're going to initiate a dispute, or if you're going to appeal something, you'll want to go to the details page for that transaction, and then you'll see where you can take appropriate action from there. I will say this, the second bullet is a caveat here. Not all transactions and entities are viewable by external users, but some of them are. And as you set up your profile and you get access to the claims that are important to you, you will get access to see the transactions that you should be able to. And then just diving deeper into details pages. So these are some common elements of an entity details page. So this is kind of the top level entity details page. You can have addresses and locations, related claims, documents under that entity. And then at the bottom of the page too, you can see users, those user profiles that are related to this entity, as well as user invites to invite other people to that entity. It's important to know that all entities will receive a system-generated unique identifier, and we'll see those in the system shortly. And entity names are captured as a legal name and a DBA name, and related claims will show every claim that this entity is related to. It will show all the claims. So for an injured worker, it might only be one, but for an employer or an insurer who deal with many more claims, it'll show all of those there. So I will stop here and see, I don't see any questions in the chat. Are there any questions from the audience at this time? All right. Take your silence as I understand it all.
Hey, this is Chris. If I could just interject one thing.
Sure.
I know this could be, kind of confusing to folks. I just wanted to let you know that, we're available at the Department of Labor to help with questions, especially for injured workers, people who might be interested in registering for an account with campus. So we'll have a help desk set up to help walk people through it. And we have workers' comp specialists and an ombudsperson all available to help people if you just need to understand more about workers' compensation in general. So please just look at this, consider it an overview, something to familiarize yourselves with. And if this is something that as an injured worker you're interested in down the road, we're here to try to help you with that, okay?
Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. And yeah, definitely, please reach out. There are plenty of resources and people willing to help. Personally, I'm a visual and practical learner, so I do find it difficult sometimes to glean everything I need from slides, but as you get to see the system more and at least as I'll have a chance to demo it for you too, some of these things just have to make sense. All right, so we will next move into getting started with Canvas. So just a quick note before we get started, I think we've seen kind of how some of these slides will look. We will be including screenshots from the system on the page. You may notice that some of these have some annotations and numbers on them. That's because these screenshots are from user manuals, which is one of the materials that will be available to you to learn the system. And these are very detailed manuals that walk you through a number of different actions in the system. And so the annotations speak to those steps. We didn't include all that in this presentation, but just a heads up that will be available to you to provide some step-by-step guides. Okay. So the first thing we'll talk about is registering in Campus. I know some of the screenshots here are a little small, but it's a very simple process to get started to make a user profile. You go to the campus website and select sign up from this little mobile window here. Another screen will show up and you fill out information around who you are, what your name is, your phone, your email, your address. You then have to, there's a section at the bottom to read and accept all agreements, and then you click sign up to register your campus account. At that time, when you click that, a verification email will be sent to the address that you provided with a link in it. And once you get that, you click the link in the email and it'll bring you back to the login page, and your account will be registered and confirmed and ready for access. So yeah, after you get that email and you click the link, you'll be brought back to the login page and you provide the credentials that you set up in the previous step. You'll be prompted to click login. And then there's also a modal that'll pop up just around access requirements acknowledgement. When you click agree, you'll proceed to the site. One of the first things you can look at after you create your profile, you'll land on the dashboard, but you'll have a campus user profile, and it'll contain all of the information that you provided on the registration. And you can go into your profile from the dashboard of the site to adjust this information if needed at any time. So with that, we get to our first demo. We get to see this in action. All right, so this is our campus site, and this is the login page. So this will be the first experience that you have with the site. If you don't have a profile, you can click sign up. This is the length of the form. It's not too long. We'll register as injured employee, and we'll register Michael Jordan today. Go through. You can pick your birthday with the date selector here. Pick your contact information. One thing as a user of the system for a while, one thing to look out for are drop downs. Don't have a full box around them when you start. And so that's something to look out for on a form as you're filling it out. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4th Street. Another nice feature of the site, the postal code. If you can fill out your postal code correctly, it'll fill in your city, county, and state in the state of Minnesota. Then you fill in your email. This is our test account email. ee3@gmail. And you create your password. Do they not match? As you can see, if they don't match, there it is. Okay. Select your agreements. You prove that you're not a robot. And that's all there is to it. So you'll get this confirmation here. You will then receive an email. I've actually already created a user in preparation for this course, so I'll just show you an example of what this email looks like. But this is the email that you'll get, and this is the link, the confirm email link, that when you click it, it takes you back to campus, and it takes you to the login page. And so I've already confirmed it, so it's telling me I already did that, but that's how it works. So I'm going to log in with the user that I created this morning. When I click login, I get this agreement. What is it doing? There it goes. All right, so this is my campus dashboard for a new user. As you can see, I don't really have anything populating it right now because I'm not related to a claim yet. But I wanted to show the profile. So up in the header, this header for the site will stay very consistent across the experience. So you'll always have familiar controls available to you to take you back. So one thing to note, your Department of Labor and Industry logo, if you click this at any point in the site, it'll drive you back to this dashboard. In the upper right, you'll always have your name. And in that, you'll have the option to log out as well as edit profile. And this is the profile that I created with the login, much like we just saw for John Paxson. And this is all of his information. I can edit any of this at any time, and then have the option to save or cancel any changes. All right. The chat still looks empty, so I'm assuming there are no questions, but that concludes this part of the demo. So we'll jump back to the slide. And actually, pull this back. Okay, so the page that we were just looking at is called the dashboard. This is where you'll see all your related claims, upcoming events, any documents. Below kind of these main indicators showing those three things are, it's called My Queues. And queues really organize all the work that you need to complete. So it'll show all of the claims that you're related to. These tabs right here down in the bottom you can flip through them and see all of the forms you've submitted, any disputes that you may have, and more queues will populate if you have more types of cases. Just a quick way to be able to organize everything that you really care about. There's also a section for notifications. And so on the dashboard, there's a whole place dedicated to notifications that will list out. There's also a notification menu you can access in the header at any time. So if you're on another page, you can click the little bell icon to see any notifications you might have. But notifications are going to be things that if a case or a claim that you're on transition to a different stage, or if there's some action for you to take, you'll be able to see that in a quick notification, and then the notification will oftentimes contain a link that can take you to the place that you need to go. I just have a note here at the bottom. Whenever in doubt, if you're lost in campus or you're in a place that you're not sure where you need to go, navigate to the dashboard, because this has everything up front for you, and it's a good kind of place to reset and navigate to the next thing that you need to do. So just taking a closer look at queues, and specifically the forms queue. So this is on the dashboard at all times, and it'll show all the forms that you've submitted related to any claims or cases you have access to. So hard copy forms are no longer required. You can submit anything electronically and see them all listed right here. I think the last page didn't really show anything in the queues, and so this is kind of what it looks like if there is stuff in the queues. You have the form types, anything that is the title of the transaction that it's related to, as well as the associated ID for that transaction. You have last updated, a status, and a confirmation number for each form submitted. It's important to note here, anywhere you see a link, so anything that's blue and heavy and bolded, that is a place where you can click and it'll navigate you to the appropriate place. So if you click on any of these associated IDs, for instance, this one that starts with a CL. This will take you to the claim details page for the claim that this form was filed on. So it's just a easy and intuitive way to navigate across the site. There's also access on this queue as well as on details pages to download copies of any form. So we recognize that while everything is electronic and online, you may want to print out the things that the forms that you filed, or you may want to print them out to take them to an event or something like that. So you always have access to do that. You can download a form and then from your computer print it. So next, we'll take a closer look at notifications. So these are system-generated messages that can be either specific tasks or just an informational message. Notifications, like I mentioned before, are always on your screen under this number 6 here. So they'll always be on the header, but then they're also more expanded on the dashboard. So you'll get a notification automatically when something happens, like if there's an event scheduled or a form has been approved or a scheduling poll has been sent out for a dispute. Just a couple things to point out. So you're able to close any notification that you get. This one here, and this is a better look at it, is an example of an action you can take from a notification. So if this one here is the little download icon, but if there's a document that's been filed on a claim, you can click this to download the document, or some of them might be a navigation to a page. You can click that, it'll take you to the page that you need to go to. You also have a control to clear all of your notifications. So if you get a number of them at one time, you can review them as you need and then clear them all out. So this next slide is just around submitting a filing to campus. So you may have noticed on the dashboard, there is a pretty simple button at the top called Submit a Filing. Any filing relevant to your claim or case will be available to you in that menu. There are several different options that you have, and as you click one, it'll take you through the web form process. You can fill out all the different forms that you might need to fill out. The one that might be most relevant to you and something that we'll demo a little later is just the request for guidance with an unreported injury. So this gives you the power to report an injury even if there isn't already a claim open with the department. Too fast. And so, yeah, this is the form I was just talking about. One of the most fundamental you can do, just because it is kind of the genesis for a claim. Not the only way, but it is the way that if you want to report it. And so, just like I mentioned before, you select this option from the Submit a Filing menu. This form will appear much like the registration form, where you're filling out fields based on the information that you know. You just scan through the page and fill out the information you need, and then you'll be able to submit it to DLI. Okay, so with that, we have arrived at our second demo. So in this one, we're going to explore the dashboard a little bit. We're just going to try and reinforce some of those things that we just saw in the presentation. We're going to take a look at the notification menu. Unfortunately, I don't have any notifications queued up, but we can at least see how it works. And then we will go through that injury report, the ad hoc injury report that I just showed. So we're back on the dashboard for John. And so this is what you'll see right after you log in. As you can see, I don't have any open claims right now, no upcoming events or any documents yet. This is because I'm not associated to anything in campus. We do have the queues down here, and as you can see, they kind of work like tabs. So you can kind of go scroll back through these. I did file a form, and this will be helping us set up for a demo later in the session, so you can see at least an example of what a form would look like, as well as a confirmation number that you'd get. So those are the queues. If you do have events in campus, the event types are somewhat limited, but there are several related to any rehab cases that you might have, where you might have a meeting with your rehab consultant, or if there is a dispute on your claim, there are events that come off of that. Those events will show up in this calendar here. And if you click on any day, you can go into a deeper calendar page to see those events as they come up. So we talked about the profile already. We don't have any notifications here right now. They would appear on this static section for notifications. But I'll show you also what you can do is if anywhere on the site you click the notifications bell in the header, this little drawer will pop out and it'll populate with that same information. And so you'll always see them on the dashboard. You won't need to do this, but if you're on a claim details page or you're somewhere else looking at an entity and something happens in the system, you'll get a notification right away and you can view that without navigating away from this page that you're currently on. All right, and then the final thing to look at is this submit a filing button. And so right at the top center of the header, I click on that, gives me all the options that I might want to file based on the user type that I am. Most of these might not matter to you at all times. Some of the big ones are the access a case or claim, which will be showing a little later, and then the request for guidance with an unreported injury. So we're going to click on this. And I will just show you real quick how to progress through this form. So the first step of this web form is to say whether you're submitting on your own behalf or on the behalf of someone else. I'll say that I'm submitting on my own behalf as the injured worker. And then as you can see, the same pattern as the registration pops up. So form pops below and you can enter information that's relevant. So let's say the injury happened on Wednesday. You can type up a narrative report or any details that you might want to include on your injury. This is a free form field, so you can type as much as you want, up to a pretty high character limit. I don't think you can type forever, but there should be plenty of room, more than this single line that shows. The next section of the form will already fill in. It just includes your information. So as John Paxson, this is all information that I've already entered on my profile. And so what Campus does is it's able to pull any information so you don't have to be filling the same things out over and over. This happens here and this happens on a lot of our forms. Really try to populate with as much as we can. So the next step of this form here is to identify the other parties that are involved. And so you'll fill in your employer information. And so Campus has a database of very many employers, all employers that were ever involved in a claim, in a workers' comp claim. And so from that database, we want to be able to look that up and try to find that same employer record before we would create a new one. And so if your employer already exists, you won't have to enter any of that information either. So when you click employer lookup, you'll get a window and you can search on any of these fields: employer name, address, city, state, zip code. So let's say if I put test in an employer name and hit search, it'll pick all of the employers with that word or that criteria in the search results here. And so I can select Cycle Test Co. as my employer, and then it populates in. And the same goes for insurer. And so there's plenty to select from here. In the event that your employer or insurer are not a part of campus's database, that's not a problem. What you can do is you can click insurer not found, and then you'll be prompted to fill in all this information around the insurer. So, demo, phone number, 654 Street, and the postal code. Well, much like the other postal code field, if you fill in the postal code in Minnesota, it'll automatically populate everything else, making it a quicker submission. You also have the option under insurer, if you don't know the employer's insurer or if your employer is not insured, you have the option to click this box and you won't have to fill any of this information out. But at that time, you can click submit form and the system will show you a success screen. It'll give you a confirmation number and it'll also show you a link back to your form history. So if I go back to the dashboard by clicking my logo here, and I go to my forms, there's the injury report that I just filed. And there's the confirmation that it went through. So that is how you file the injury report. And I think that takes us through this demo. I'll stop here again. Are there any questions? Looks quiet on the chat. But I'm happy to walk back through something if anything's confusing. Okay. Just let me move the canvas back over here. All right. So we're blazing ahead. We're into claim access now. So what we saw on campus on the last screen is a worker who just created a profile and we filled out a report of an injury. Oh, I see a question coming through. Do employees need to register on a laptop or can the registration be done by cell phone? I believe that all registration, the question is, do employees need to register on a laptop or can they do it by phone? I'll say it's best to register on your own online because that way you can set up your password for yourself and you'll be the only one who knows your password. So it's best practice to log in and submit the registration yourself. And the other question is, do we have to tell our employer about an injury if we submit one here? And does our employer know if we submit an injury this way? So I suspect that most injuries are not going to be reported this way. Most are captured by the employer and then sent in through the insurer to campus. And we'll get in. We're actually just starting about how to access a claim that already exists in campus. But if you can't find that claim, or if you don't think a claim has been created, that way to do that we just walked through is the employee's way to kind of report that to campus. Again,
Mark, let me address that in part two. So I'm one of the work comp specialists at the department for you folks. And we still, if we get injured on the job, we still have an obligation to tell our employers, and it's their obligation then to forward that notice of injury on to their work comp insurer or claims administrator. And certainly if the employer isn't cooperating, that's an option. Or again, contact us at the work comp division so we can try to help you out.
Yep. That's right. Thanks, Chris. Okay. So with that, we'll dive into claim access. So what we did before was reporting an injury that wasn't a claim yet in campus. Now what we'll be looking at is probably the more likely scenario. You are an injured worker and you know that there is a claim created based on you communicating to your employer and then the insurer passing that information through. And so just by creating a profile and having your name in there, you won't get access to that claim. You have to file a form to DLI to assert that you are involved in that claim. And once they process that, they'll be able to grant you access, and then you'll have access to your claim. So as injured workers, this is primarily the way you're going to do it. It's around the requesting and redeeming a unique access code. So this is accessed for you as a submit a filing. It was the first option, access a claim or case. Under that, you'll select request or redeem an access code, and it'll pull this form that you see right here. You can choose to be either to call yourself either the employee named on the claim, if that's accurate, or you can also file this if you're a representative of an employer named on the claim. So the first step you'll want to do is you'll say, I need a code. You'll have an option to pick whether I have a code or need a code. When you put I need a code, you will fill out appropriate information in these next 4 fields to help campus link you to the record that's already exists. When you fill that information out correctly and hit confirm, the site will then allow you to proceed and click submit the form. If successful, you'll see that confirmation message again, and you'll get an email, and then the access code that you are trying to get will be mailed to you. And so when you have that, when you receive that in the mail, not email, through the mail, then you'll be able to come back here and click I have a code, and it'll have a place for you here to put that code in. And when you enter that, then your access will be granted. This is another one, a little complex to explain, but we will walk through this in our next demo, which is coming up shortly. So that's how you would do it if you're an injured worker. There are other options for accessing a claim through an authorization web form. So just to note that this is specifically for users who aren't parties. So if you're a spouse of an injured worker, is the most common example, I guess, given. You can submit a claim access authorization to DLI, and the DLI will review that submission and determine whether to grant access or not. So it's a slightly different web form, but it's also still pretty self-explanatory and simple. So we're not going to demo this one today, but just as just to show you that this exists.
And that's no different than the way we do things today in the current world. If anybody wants to see another individual's private data, they have to have an authorization, even if it's a spouse or a partner. There's data privacy laws out there that as a government agency, we have to respect. And so that's not any different in the future using campus than it has been in the past in our processes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. We did have a question come through. How long will my access last for my injury claim once I have been given code? So I believe the code itself, just the time to redeem the access code lasts until you enter it. I don't know if there's a time limit to enter that code. Once you're granted access to a claim in campus, I believe you have, especially as the injured worker, you just have access to that claim for the life of the claim. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong there, but
yeah, the injured worker, once they get access to that first claim, they should have access to all other claims going forward. If you're not the injured worker, a general time frame we've set in campus is 6 months. I do believe they have the option of going longer, as long as 12 months. And there are different kinds of authorizations we need to consider. Obviously, if you're talking about an attorney who's representing the injured worker, well, that's not, they don't need an authorization to go in there because as the representing attorney, they're a party essentially to the case. So we're just talking about individuals who require authorization. It's going to generally be 6 months.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So we'll just jump to the next slide before our next demo. But this is the access authorization confirmation message. And so after you submit it, like we said, a DLI representative will review the submission. If approved, the claim will get added to the My Claims tab. If denied, you'll get an email informing you of the denial. And then this is actually a footnote here for the question I was just asked, but for the claim access authorization, that is not the employee. This is if you're a spouse or someone who's not related to a party, or who is not a party on the claim. Typically a 6-month period from the approval date. Okay, so the next thing we will do is walk through the request and redeem an access code process. So we'll bring our dashboard back here. So I've logged in as John Paxson, as you guys have seen. Again, all I have done right now is I've created a user profile. Let's take it that I know that there is a claim out there filed in Campus. What I need to do now to access that claim is request a code and allow DLI to link my user profile to that claim. So what I'll do is I'll go to submit a filing, access a case or claim. And I'm the injured worker on this one. So I'm going to go to request or redeem an access code in this modal here. Request or redeem an access code and click next. So this is the form we were just looking at on the PowerPoint. I am the employee named on the claim. I will click I need a code. And then I will enter this information here. And what these 4 boxes do is this helps the system tie me, the user, John Paxson, to an employee entity of a claim that already exists in Campus. So that's already out there, and I just need to confirm with this information. So I know my social security number. I do not need to put a department provided PIN, although that is an option. The birth date that I entered for this user, December 18th, 1987. And the preferred zip code is really the address that I would have as a user. That is there. I can click confirm. And what it does there when I click confirm is that it basically says, I have a match. I know I can match your profile to an employee that's already created on a claim, an employee entity. It will then pull up the address that's associated to you. This is the one that I entered on my profile. I click the attestation box here, and then I would click submit form. Now, to ensure that I have a smooth demonstration today, I've filed this form to request a code already. And so I would click this form. It would say, just pretend it says success, you filed it. I would go back to the dashboard and look at my forms. And here's what I filed. Access a case or claim for John Paxson. So then, after that, the code will be mailed to me. Let's pretend I wait a few more days and I get the access code on the mail document that I get. So now that I have the code, I can go to submit a filing again, access a case or claim. back to the same place that I went before, request or redeem an access code. This time I'll redeem it. I'll confirm that I'm the employee named on the claim, and then I'll say this time I have a code. And I'll enter my code. It's right here. Click the attestation box again and submit form. And there it worked. So now I get a message, the code is redeemed. Everything checks out. And now our dashboard just got a little more interesting. So now I can see I have one claim. This is the claim I was trying to get access to. Under the My Claims queue, I suddenly have access to the claim in question, along with a link to the page. So that is how you get access to a claim. I'll stop here. Are there any questions? So need a code even though it is my claim. So yeah, it is your claim, but this is just a way for the system to be able to link you to your claim. And so that's why you need a code. It's not about necessarily an extra step to keep you out. It's more about being able to link the proper users to your entity.
And Mark, didn't we design it so they only have to request that code one time?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's also kind of an added security measure because you don't want people without access to see your data. So if we require you one time to have a code mailed to your physical address, it's just an added step in security to make sure that you're who you are, and you only need to do it once. And so if you have any other claims down the road, you don't have to request access again. You've already established your identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Because if we didn't have this step, I could just name myself John Paxson and log in, and it would give me, without that code access step, it would just give me access to everything under that name, and that wouldn't be very secure. Another question, will my attorney need a code too? So attorneys have a different method to receive claim access. They won't go through the code process. Instead, they can file a notice of representation through campus. So they will do the same thing that we did to create a user profile, but they'll create a profile for an attorney. And then as an attorney, when they submit a filing, and do access a case or claim, they can file a separate option to file a notice of representation. And so it's a slightly different process, but once access is granted, they'll be able to see everything that they'll need to see. And then they'll be able to see everything basically that the employee sees.
And this is not attorneys in general. You have to be an attorney licensed with the state of Minnesota. So, we talked about this intensely years ago when we're trying to figure out how to give different parties access. And attorneys, they're licensed with the state. They have a certain degree of accountability. And so as long as they're able to log in and provide evidence through that retainer agreement or authorization form, and we can confirm that their bar ID is in fact the ID pertaining to that attorney, they get much quicker access, which is good for everybody, because if there's going to be any legal action taken on a case, we don't want any delays. We want to make sure that your representatives can start working on your case as soon as possible.
Okay. Any other questions from the group? All right. So I have on the demo here that will also show an authorization. I can show that web form just to show what it looks like. It's pretty self-explanatory. Probably won't file it. But so you go to file that authorization form, you go to the same place. So let's pretend I didn't just do what I did. Maybe I'm the spouse of John Paxson, I could create a profile, and then I would do access a case or claim from the submit a filing, submit an authorization this time instead of the access code, and hit next. And this is a multi-step web form, so you can look through all the instructions here, but it gives you options. So you're just supposed to categorize yourself by how you relate to the claim. You could have signed authorization to access. You could be the parent or guardian. You could be a QRC, a rehab consultant, with signed authorization to access a claim. And so this just kind of allows other users who aren't direct parties to be able to get authorization to look at it. We'll say I'm the spouse. In section 2, you have to say either I'm authorized to sign my own request or that you have written consent. You go to the next step, and this is how we would locate a claim in Campus. So if you're trying to get authorization to a claim, you would probably know some information about what that claim is and what you're trying to see. And so Campus offers 3 different ways to be able to try to locate that claim in the system. The first way is to use the employee ID number, the Campus ID number that you'll see. So you can add this called a WID. You can add this, it starts with EE and then there's a 9-digit code after that, along with the date of injury. Or you can do the claim number. So instead of the employee number, the claim ID number, along with the employee's last name. Or the final way is, and I think this is the most common way, or we expect it to be the most commonly used way. You can use the employee's last 4 of their social, provide the date of injury, and then just the last name of the employee. And those factors together would be able to find that claim in the Campus system. I don't have this prepared right now, although maybe I can use the one that I just got access to. Campus claim number and excellent. So you see, once I fill in information, the next button appears available. And the final step is where you can attach that authorization. So you can attach a document on your computer, either maybe it's a scanned document or another web form. You can fill out information about the individual who's authorizing you to have access and the date signed. And then you also have to pick about who that signing individual is, whether they're the employee themselves or a representative or a dependent of a deceased employee. There's another option, another place here to support or to attach supporting documents. And I can show you just how this works. This is common throughout the system. We have drag and drop enabled across Campus for any time you need to attach a document. So you can drag anything from your desktop right into this modal and then upload it. And then at the bottom of this form, there's just a place to provide an e-signature. So because you'll be e-filing forms, it won't be hard copies, you can simply provide your name in this and click the checkbox saying that by checking the box you're legally signing and click submit. So that's how you would do a claim access authorization. Again, I'm not going to actually submit it just because I already have access to the claim and I'm the employee. But just wanted to walk through that so you can see all of the different ways you can access the claim depending on who you are. All right. Any other questions? Sounds like the chat is quiet. Cool. We'll keep moving right along. Actually, we are an hour in. Now might be a decent time to take a 5-minute break. So why don't we do that? Let's reconvene at 3:07. Take a 5-minute break and we'll dive into the second half of the presentation.
That's 2:07 Central Time.
That's right. I'm over here. I'm in the future on the East Coast.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, it is 2:07 Central Time. Just give it another minute, but we'll dive back in 60 seconds. All right. So we're ready to get going again. Jumping into the fourth of our 5 agenda items today. So it looks like we may be able to get through everything a little quicker than anticipated, which would be good. We can have time for questions at the end, or any other conversations that we want to have. And then if nothing else, we can give some time back on a Friday afternoon, which isn't so bad in and of itself. So just to kind of review where we are. So we created a user, we registered with Campus. We created a user named John Paxson and identified ourselves as an employee, an injured worker type user. We logged in, we looked around the dashboard a little bit, and we know that there was a claim that I wanted access to. So what we did was we submitted a filing to request an access code. We submitted that. We waited for the code to come to us in the mail, and then we used that code to redeem it. And upon redeeming the code in Campus, we got instant access to our claim. We also kind of shared another side option for how to get access if I'm not the employee on the claim. But the last thing that we looked at was the dashboard, where we have the claim that I now have access to in my queues and on my dashboard available for me to look at. So the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of looking at that claim a little closer. So now that we have access to it, actually going to that claim details page for that transaction and looking at all the information that I can see on that claim, and also taking a look at all the different things that I can do from that claim details page. So as I mentioned, the claim details page provides the additional details about a claim, such as key dates, injury details, accident details, employment, benefits, and payment. You can navigate to any and all of these sections on the page by clicking any of the headers along the left side. You'll see when we look at the details page in the real site, it's a lot of information to include on the page. And so what we did is we had all of these kind of headers that are in bold, and you can collapse and expand that information as you see fit.
See, in Minnesota, I think we're like traditionally old polka people. So I think everybody might understand how, like, we refer to this as like an accordion file, because you can kind of shrink it, collapse it, and expand it. It's kind of neat. It stores a lot of information. So it's nice to be able to apply that accordion technique and just click it to open it or click it to reduce it and just see the information you really want to focus on.
Yep, that's right. I guess that's something I wouldn't know, not being a native Minnesotan, but I like it. So the next portion of the details page too, so below the accordion, there will be a listing along the bottom of tabs. And when we look at this, you'll kind of note that they will look very similar to the queues concept, where you have tabs along the bottom of the page. But there's even more very important information in these tabs. The first one here that's covered is the Parties tab. So by clicking on the Parties tab, you can look at all the different parties that are involved in the claim. And this is super important just to make sure everything is correct on the claim, but you can also see who all the different players are involved in the claim. The Parties tab is always going to be on the far left. It's a pretty important tab. The only external users with access to the claim are users listed as parties. So we'll dive into kind of the users and parties and how all the different information is listed. But then also on this Parties tab, you do have the option available to you to contact the parties. And so by clicking a button under that tab, you can send an email communication through Campus to different parties. Another thing you can do on the claim details page is you can submit a filing to that claim. So we are all aware of the submit a filing button at the top of the dashboard. And what that does is allows you to submit a filing basically anywhere on Campus, but if you know you're going to be taking action on a specific claim, the place you want to do that is you want to go to the claim details page and then submit a filing using, kind of hard to see, but the yellow button in the upper right of the claim details page. And so that ensures that you're filing it to the specific claim, and it helps you move further along the process by submitting from the details page. We'll see the different options that you have, but one of the common options is if there is a dispute on your claim, this would be a place where you could initiate that. Another important tab on the claim details page is the documents tab. So operates much like the parties tab, but it'll capture all the documents that are filed on the claim across the life of the claim. And so this is what I mentioned earlier. You'll have the option here. You can see all of the documents. You have the link to see all of the documents in full if you want to view them electronically. But then you also have the option to download them. And so you can store them on your own computer if you want. You can save them and then print them. And so you have the option to download everything, or you can download one document at a time if you want. All of those options are available to you. And so without further ado, we'll just jump into a demo of the claim details page, and we can kind of walk through those different controls. We'll look at the parties tab, at the documents tab, and then we'll also show how to submit filing. All right, so back on campus, back in John Paxton's profile here. This is the claim that we just got access to via the redemption of the access code. And so now I have access to the claim. I'm going to click this link right here. And campus takes me to the details page. So like I said, this is a lot of information. So we'll kind of break it down piece by piece. One thing to note, at any details page, you're always going to have a breadcrumb leading you back to where you were before. And so we have a button here to take you back to the dashboard because that's how you got to this details page. Next, below this, you see the title. So this is the title of the transaction. It's the name of the employee, and then a colon includes injury on the injury date. You can also see, we talk about transactions having an ID number. So the ID number appears in the breadcrumb here, as well as a subtitle under the main title. So you can use this number to reference, make sure you're looking at the right claim. Next below that, we have kind of a card, a gray card showing the top, most important information on the claim. Again, you have the file number, the employee, the employer, the insurer, so all the main parties, date of injury, and then you have the part of body that was injured. The next section down, we have an overview. And so this section, it doesn't show anything right now. If any of these are all listed as conditions of the claim, and if any of the claim conditions are true, you'll see a green circle appear around with a little check mark. So it's just another way to try to help identify different conditions of a claim that may be relevant. This is to show you the accordion that Chris was talking about. So there's nothing really under this claim overview section that interests me right now. So I can click it and it'll collapse everything. We have claim details below that. So this shows a little more information than just kind of this high level stuff at the top. It includes all of the ID numbers for all of the parties, the employee, the employer, the insurer. We have the time of injury along with the date of injury and a field for a claim type. We also have the claim narrative that was entered upon filing the claim. Again, we can collapse this. And then we can see the accordion here. I didn't fill a lot of this in, but there are places here for key dates, injury details, the body parts that are involved, an accident description, Then there's accident details where you can leave another narrative. You can have an address. If there's a specific premise that this was on, you can add this in here along with any initial treatment. There's a lot here around employment details. So this might be added either upfront or as the claim progresses. And then benefits and payment details, which will be filled in as deemed appropriate. So that's just a quick tour through kind of the top section, the details section of the details page. Then we'll go down to the parties section. So, or excuse me, the tab section. And first up is the parties tab. So under here, the parties that we have listed on the claim, the employee, myself, Paxton. If I click on employer here, I'll see that my employer is the paint store. I see ID for that employer, along with the address if they have one entered and service method. I want to point this out too. So this employer, the paint store, has an attorney named Michael Jordan. He has gotten access to this claim as an attorney by filing a notice of representation. And so he appears here under the party of an employer as a user for this employer. And so his information is here. The same goes for the insurer. So there's an insurer with the kind of top level party information. And then Jim Halpert has added in himself as the attorney, the representative for this insurer. And so he's a user listed under this party. I'm going to pause here because I think I saw a question come through. So the question is, can the employee change any of the injury details if they think some are wrong, like body part or description of injury? So not without filing a form. There's no way to go in here and just click an edit button and change information. You know, this information has to be agreed upon and filed the right way. So it's important not to allow free reign, but there are ways to recommend or request changes if something is incorrect by filing a form. That's a good question, though. Okay, so on this parties tab, I did mention that we could also contact parties. So if you look over here on the right side, you see this yellow button, contact parties. If I click it, it pulls up all of the contact information for the users of the parties. And so John Paxton is the employee entity. And then my profile that I created is my user information that populates this. And so then for the paint store, it is the employer entity, but the user that's under there is Michael Jordan, the attorney. And so his information appears here. And the same goes for Jim Halpert as the attorney for the insurer. One caveat to this too, attorneys obviously don't only have to represent the employer or the insurer, they also can represent the employee. So if there's an attorney who's a user under this, in this claim, they'll also list under a user in this form. So when you go to contact parties, the attorney will appear here. So you can use the phone number to call whoever you need to. You can also use this button to email all parties. And what that does is, did it on my other screen, but it just opens your native email client and includes the emails that are all here. Alternatively, you can always just copy and paste their email address into an email of your choice. So that is the parties tab. We'll go to the documents tab while we're in the tab section next. So we'll look through the other tabs briefly. There's a claims summary, which will include different actions that have been taken on the claim. There's a benefits tab that'll show indemnity benefits and reported compensation details. There's a related claims and cases tab, And so what this does is if there is a, let's say there was a dispute on this claim, if I went down to the bottom of this page and I can click the related claims and cases, I could get access to all those other claims that are related to this one. There also may be related claims in the event that maybe it's the same employee or two different claims are filed for two different injuries, but they're somehow related. You can access those related claims as well. And then there is a reporting history and claim payments tab. Again, these are empty right now because there's not information here. But as appropriate information becomes available in this claim, these tabs would fill up. So finally, we'll look at the Documents tab. And so this will include every document that's been filed by any party on the claim. I added some this morning, and so we can see there's a listing of 3 documents. If I click on the row and the little caret here, the row will expand and show me if there's any attachments on the document. Also have the document type, who it was created by, the party that it was created by, the user that it was created by, and the time and date that it was added on. You can see along the right side of the tab, under each row, I have the option to download any individual document. So if I want to see this dependency and error information, I can click download, and you can see that the document downloaded in my browser. I can also view all of these documents electronically. So let's say I don't really need to download it, I just want to look at it. If I click on the link, and let's pretend this is a document and not a picture of our dashboard, but this will be how you can view a document in Canvas. So the document will appear here. You have some a print control from the viewer. You can zoom in and out. And then there's some scrolling controls. You can also rotate the document if somehow it got scanned in at the wrong upside down or sideways, you can always rotate it. And then it's important to see too, you can see all the document details along the side. So everything you can see in the tab. So then looking at all the documents in the Documents tab, if I want to download all of them, I have this option too, and this yellow button right here, I can click that. The option to select a subset of them, or I can just choose all, as well as if I want to include a claim summary report or not. And if I click download documents, I think this might be turned off right now. This is in our test environment, but it'll download a zip file with all of the documents on the claim in one shot. All right, so that's the tab section and the details section of the claim details page. The final thing I want to point out, and I think we'll show more detail on this in our next demo, but in the upper right, we have the submit filing button. And this is how you would take action on a claim. So if you need to make an edit, or if you need to initiate a dispute, any of these options here, refer to VRU, listing benefits, anything that could happen on a claim. You can pick the option here and hit save, and it'll take you to that appropriate web form to start your filing. All right, so I'll pause here. Are there any other questions at this time? All right. Moving right along. So we're on to our last subject, and this is electronic service. So we just showed you the submit filing button on the page, on the claim details page. Obviously with the electronic submission of these forms in Campus that Campus allows now. We're also going to need to serve documents electronically wherever possible. And so Campus allows that through electronic service. At the end of any document that would require legal service to all of the parties or some of the parties on the claim, you'll be prompted to choose who you're serving the document, and then you can sign and send those documents electronically where possible. If you are choosing a document and maybe a party doesn't have a user in Campus, or they don't wish to receive electronic services, then they will be mailed a document. You'll have to print out the document and mail it today. And so this section here really just talks about going through a web form. This is the initiate dispute web form. At the end of it is what we're really concerned with here. So after the web form, much like the other web forms that we've already looked at today, you'll be presented with an affidavit of service section. And so this is where you choose what parties you need to serve. Zoom in a little bit. Sometimes, if service is deemed absolutely necessary, these will be graded and already checked in for you, meaning that you have to serve them. You have the role of the person, the people that you're serving, the address if necessary, and then you can see here too, you have the service method. So for, in this case, Clint and Los Pollos Hermanos and Ali Peralta, they all have chosen electronic service. So when I click submit, it'll just be sent to them via email. But then one SIF insurer update has chosen their service method to be US mail. And so the system provides an address for you. You can pick the date that it'll need to be served, which will be probably today. You can edit the address if necessary. But then what happens is when you submit this, it'll print a label for you with the address on it so that you can send it out. Another option that this gives you, so the affidavit of service section here pulls in all the parties that are on the claim already, but you do have the option to add a service recipient. So if there's somebody else that isn't listed that should be also served this document, you can click the button and add them. And this shows you, these screens just show you that kind of add service recipient. So you'll just have to add a name, a role, an address, all the typical information that you'll need to deliver the document. And then you proceed to the electronic signature section. And we've already seen that as well, where you just type your name in and then click the checkbox, and that means that you are electronically signing. So when you are served a document electronically, you'll get an email indicating that there is a document available for you to view. So it's important to understand that this email is not going to be the document with any sensitive information in it. Rather, the email is just going to be a generic message saying, hey, you have a document that's been served. Log into Campus. You will have already gotten a profile, obviously, if you are receiving this email. So you'll log into Campus and you can see the document through a link in the email once you log in. And when you click that link, you'll go to the document page that we viewed. It's the document, the ability to zoom in and out and rotate. Furthermore, any document that you're served will also be in that Documents tab. So if you log back into Campus, you don't always have to see the email. You can just go to that tab and see if there's any additional documents to the tab. Okay, so I'll pause here. We're about to go into our final demo. Chris, did I miss anything in regards to electronic service documents or anything?
No, I mean, it's a good general overview. I certainly would encourage folks to ask questions.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, that will we'll walk through a form. I think I'll pick the initiate dispute and keep it as simple as possible because it does have the service at the end, and we can see kind of what that looks like. All right, so I am John Paxton. I'm on my claim details page that I gained access to. Let's say that I want to initiate a dispute. This is a somewhat complex form. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining the dispute and what that is. The real purpose here is to show the affidavit of service, which doesn't only appear on this document, it appears elsewhere. But I'll take you through how to do this. So I initiate a dispute. I have to associate a claim to it. Obviously, this is the claim that I was just on. Selected. I click next. I am John Paxton, so I represent myself. And I have a dispute with these two parties. Let's say that I want to have a conference about this. I can document issues that I have, say it's a medical one. I have to add an issue for this dispute, so I'll add one. Again, I know I'm breezing through this, but this is another action that we have in another training. Okay. I go to next. I have a filing summary of what I'm filing. I electronically sign it, and then I go to next. And this is what we wanted to show. So this initiate dispute web form is a form that we want to serve to the parties, and so it finishes with this affidavit of service section. We want to have all the parties that we want to serve below. So click myself, I can click the employer, the paint store, all of their representatives. So all of the representatives that are tied to the paint store will be electronically served. And then if I click the insurer, they will also get electronic service to their representative. If I want to add somebody, I can. Add another person. I can say they're part of the insurer party. I can add an address. Save them. And then as you can see, the person that I just added to the bottom was added here. Since this isn't tied to a user in campus necessarily, I just kind of entered somebody to be served. The service method for this person will be US mail. I can choose a date to do that. I'll choose today, and I do have the option to edit the address if I want to. But then with a few more clicks, I can submit the form. I probably forgot something as I was breezing through the dispute, but that takes us through kind of the affidavit of service and how that works for our web forms. So that takes us through this demo, and this is we're at the end of the course now. So I'll pause and we can open up the chat room. If there are any questions, please post them there, or I don't know if we unmute people or not, but please ask questions. Okay, question from Olivia. Would you recommend employees and employers to attend a Campus 201 session? So we have 201 sessions around more specific acts. Generally that users that will be kind of more ingrained in the system will be filing, whether it's different forms they'll be filing. Attorneys have kind of more to learn around all the different filings that they can submit. I don't know off the top of my head if there's an employees 201 course. I think it just kind of depends on what type of user you are on campus.
Brian, could you comment on that? I know you'll have to go through the chat because you're muted, but what's planned as far as additional training opportunities for injured workers, for employers? Is there going to be a Campus 201 for those folks? Or Aaron? Brian and Aaron do a lot of training for the department. So there's no Campus 201. Okay. Are we offering additional classes for employees?
The other thing I'll say, I think there are additional one-on-one courses being led, but then there are also a ton of materials, like I mentioned earlier, around where these screenshots came from. There are a number of manuals and kind of reference guides, and we have access to these courses themselves, where if you have questions about something, you can always reference those documents. And then it's sent to, there are people at the help desk available and ready to help out if you have questions about other actions in campus.
And I would say for employer accounts, it depends on your business process and how involved you want to be. Some employers are very comfortable in letting their insurance agents or their claims administrators or whomever have the majority of responsibility for their work comp cases. And employers and oftentimes and claims administrators have their own portal for employers to access. But if you're a larger employer, you may very well be interested in having a campus account just as an extra resource to see what's on the division file and what's happening with your claims that are reported to the work comp division. But that's all up to the business. Injured workers, of course, have varying degrees of technical savvy. As I've said repeatedly, and as Mark pointed out, we do have people available to help them if they just have work comp questions or want to get a campus account going and figure out how to use that to monitor their own work comp activities. So a lot of this just depends on what those parties need. Attorneys, of course, QRCs, they're mandatory. They have to be in campus because that's how the business works. That's how they generate their rehabilitation forms and communicate the rehab plan. And that's how the attorneys are going to take their legal action and make their pleadings and filings.
Okay. Yep, and I encourage everybody to look at the chat. Looks like Yash put up a link to all of the training materials and where they'll be listed. So please head there. You can take a look at all the different things that we've provided. I'll just leave the chat open. If there are any other questions, please enter them now. Okay, looks pretty quiet on the chat. Yash left another message just saying we can send any questions at any time to the WCMP mailbox. That's dli.wcmp@state.mn.us. I want to thank everybody for their time today. Thanks, Yash, for setting this up, and thanks, Chris, for helping facilitate. And if there's nothing else, we'll give you some time back on your Friday afternoon. So thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mark. Goodbye, everybody.